Welcome to Left, Right, Center, where we are covering Colorado politics, first on CBS News Colorado. I'm political specialist Sean Boyd. The top two candidates for Denver's mayor attended their first formal forum this week, and Kelly Brough and Mike Johnston used the opportunity to differentiate themselves on some key issues. I moderated the event, hosted by the Denver Metro Chamber of Commerce, Downtown Denver Partnership, and Visit Denver. You can watch it on CBSNewsColorado.com. Our analysts, however, Republican Dick Wadhams, Democrat Mike Dino, watched it in person. So let's start first with your takeaways. Mike?
Well, first of all, it's very cordial, very polite. I mean, I think if Denver voters are, want a leader who they can be comfortable with, both these candidates, I think, exuded, first of all, intelligence about what's going on in the city. Two, the capability of getting it done. And three, really well thought out ideas on what their term as mayor would look like. So
Kelly was clearly in her element as the former head of the chamber, right? She was more comfortable than I've ever seen her in one of these before.
Yeah, it was kind of a hometown crowd for her.
Right.
What I was grateful for, Sean, is there weren't 17 candidates standing on that stage.
I know, right?
I mean, frankly, I really drove home. I don't think there was one debate during that phase of the campaign that really was that illuminating, to be honest. That was a good debate the other night. I think it showed both of them are very talented. They are very knowledgeable. There are some subtle differences that are going to be expanded, I think, over the next few weeks. But no, I enjoyed it. I thought it was, and it speaks well of Denver. They've come down to these two great candidates.
Yeah, and no fireworks, but I didn't really expect any.
No, I mean, certainly with the group sponsoring it, I mean, they really want a thoughtful discussion of the key issues, and that's what we got. And the key issues are still the key issues: homelessness, crime, and affordability.
There we go. Homelessness and crime especially dominated the hour-and-a-half forum. Both candidates discussed their plans for ending encampments. I asked them what they would do about unhoused individuals who refuse to back up and move.
I don't believe you can arrest people for being homeless. I don't think that is a viable strategy. I think what you can do is actually offer people access to high-quality services and then be able to say, once those services are available and you do have tiny home options, that there are a set of places where you can go to live. And if you are not willing to go there, then you can't stay here. That doesn't mean you have to arrest them. That just means people aren't allowed to camp in open public spaces if we have much more safe and stable and dignified options. And what we have seen overwhelmingly is when we offer those options, people choose them.
I think all of us know you have to provide, someone who has no place to go has to have a safer option. I still feel I'm unclear sort of what the next step is in that instance. What do you do when someone says this standard is okay? And what we know is they're going to have frostbite and lose all of their toes if we don't figure out how to save them, or they're going to die because they're unhoused. That's the struggle and tension we're having. I think everyone agrees we want voluntary commitment for people to go to locations that are safer, to get services and support. But when someone won't do it, I think we as a city have to be prepared to say, we're not going to leave you to fend for yourself anymore.
So Brough said involuntary mental health holds or even arrests in some cases may be necessary. Johnston rejected both of those, saying he would treat difficult cases. You remember, he said, I'm going to treat them like an eviction. But I don't understand how that works. You evict someone from a tent. Is he trying to reach out to the left here, you think, Dick?
Well, it kind of sounded like that. And in fact, upon reflection, on thinking about the debate and watching it again, I had the same reaction. During that phase, Sean, I was thinking about Aurora Mayor Mike Kaufman when he went on the streets of Denver and was with the homeless. And remember what he said, that there's that hardcore group of people who want to live on the streets. They don't want to go anywhere. They want their drugs. They want their alcohol.
Right, they choose to be there.
They choose to be there. I think that's the big issue with the homeless, is what do you do with those people? And it's not as simple as evicting them. I think that's going to be a big part of the debate for the next few weeks.
Yeah, Mike, but Kelly's plan for dealing with the homeless encampment seems to be more safe camping sites, really. And she says no sweeps, but you know, if they don't go voluntarily, you just arrest them all?
Well, and it shows the complexity of the issue. There aren't any easy solutions. I think Mike Johnston said that there's nobody that's really got nationally has the answer. Now, something that stood out for me with him is he said somebody smoking fentanyl in the 16th Street Mall is not an imminent danger to themselves or others.
Right.
And I think for that crowd, they had to hear that and like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I mean, how can they not be an imminent danger to people?
Right.
And that's one of our challenges that we face right now. Dick gets fired up about that stuff. And so, but you know, Kelly's solutions to it, and actually arresting people possibly, does rattle people, particularly on the left. And that again, we've talked about, and Dick's been very good at that construct, is the separation between those who want to be more considerate of those who are facing these challenges and others who are like, we got to put the hammer down.
Yeah, I just wonder where the city is as a whole on this. You know, are they further to the left where they say, no, we are not into arresting people and taking them in involuntarily? Or are they more, you know, we're done with this. You know, you got to do something about it.
Yeah,
You know?
well, real quickly, they showed who voted. Now, the 55 and over crowd voted it early, and they want a harder approach.
Right.
And then that younger crowd came in the last 2 days, and they changed the pace of it.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So it'll be interesting to see. It's always about turnout, who turns out.
Yeah.
So this past week, Johnston was endorsed by former Denver Mayor Federico Pena. How much of a boost does he get, Mike, from an endorsement like that?
Well, coming early and wanting to keep the momentum going from finishing first in the general election, I think that's a big plus for him. But both of them will have more endorsements to come.
So Mayor Webb, former Mayor Webb, I got to wonder, is he going to weigh in on this? His candidate in the general election, Leslie Herod, lost. So does he pick between these two?
Well, I've heard that he's going to endorse Kelly, but I don't know. You know, Sean, the other thing about the other night, I think we've got two candidates who kind of emulate one of those two really successful mayors in Denver history the last 40 years, Pena and Wellington Webb. And to me, Johnston is the Pena candidate. You know, the lofty, visionary, make a great city. Yes. And Kelly is the nuts and bolts, and we got to get stuff done. That Wellington Webb was when he followed Pena. I think those two guys are both really successful role models to be mayor of Denver, I believe. And I think it's an interesting contrast. Which is better? Which one do the voters want? We're going to find out. But it really struck me the other night.
Right. Johnston does have that ability. He's very inspirational when he speaks. The candidates also parted ways in the forum on whether homelessness should be treated as a regional issue that requires a regional solution.
Denver can't do this alone. And Denver's been trying. We have a $254 million budget for our housing host. That budget didn't even exist when I was chief of staff for John Hickenlooper. And I would just say we're breaking under the weight of it. It's why I met with mayors throughout the region to ask if they would agree that part of our homeless strategy has to be that we do this work as a region, that we stop sweeping people across each other's borders.
The 16th Street Mall is not Mike Kaufman's problem, and Union Station is not Wheat Ridge's problem. That is Denver's problem, to be able to say, we're going to make sure we can do the work to be aggressive and creative about this, to find solutions, to deliver them, to show that things are working and scaling, and then to be able to say, now that we know what's working for us, let's see what's working for you and how we can partner.
Yeah, there's certainly costs and benefits to a regional versus a local approach. What do you make of this, that they are on different sides of this one?
Well, I think they're both right in many ways. That I think Kelly's right. You cannot solve the problem in Denver unless you're working with the communities around you, Lakewood and Aurora, et cetera. But Mike, I thought, made a good point. Denver's got to solve the 16th Street Mall issue. And I think he was right about that. And then I think Mike mentioned earlier the conflict between Denver and Aurora in terms of treatment first or housing first,
right?
And that's going to be a big one, a really big one. And frankly, I think Mayor Kaufman is right about that. And Dustin Zvonek and others in Aurora, that's going to be a conflict they're going to have to work out.
Right, certainly have covered that. And I asked Johnston about that, and I think that may be why he's sort of thinking about this. We got to treat this more locally first. He doesn't say we're never going to reach out and, with our neighbors.
He didn't completely dismiss regionalism, but if you look back, regionalism got the airport built. Mayor Pena had to get aligned with Adams County and his neighbors to get that airport built. And look what that airport does for us now. Mayor Webb created the Metro Mayor's Caucus, and John Hickenlooper was the head of the Fast Tracks effort to get light rail. And then, of course, just recently, a day or two ago, Mayor Hancock, as part of the Metro Mayor's Caucus, came out against this housing bill that they can't stand at the legislature. So regionalism here is critical. We've grown so much. We've got to find solutions. These problems are too expensive to solve just by one city. The 16th Street Mall, that's the main street of downtown, and Denver's got to pay attention to it. But a lot of the other issues, we've got to work with our neighbors around the metro area.
I think one of the things that Johnston brought up was he's concerned that if we start working on a regional basis, that you get differences of opinion. You know, you talk about housing first versus treatment first, and this ends up becoming a blue ribbon commission, or you're talking about it for the next year and not taking action on it, right?
Yeah, Sean, did you hear the groans in the audience when you brought up blue ribbon commission? I think we all are kind of sick of those things, but
right. But you could see this turning into something like that, where the mayors meet and they disagree and and nothing gets done, right? Well, in addition to the runoff for mayor, there are runoffs for 3 city council seats. And depending on the outcome, Denver could have 4 candidates endorsed by Democratic Socialists. I asked Brough and Johnston, who are both mainstream Democrats, how they would work with a council that could be much further to the left of them on many issues.
I think it's both a matter of building those relationships from the start, but then setting clear, inspiring visions for what you want to get done, and figuring out what it takes to pull people on board. And I think I've had an experience to work with a lot of folks that will be on that council, and I look forward to the chance to work with them to take on the problems we're facing.
I think the next mayor needs to be prepared to stand her ground, to veto legislation that we don't think serves our residents, and be very clear about why I would be doing it. I think the next mayor needs to be willing, the minute that she does that, jump in with city council and say, here's the kinds of things, though, I could support that I think would move us in that direction.
So I got to wonder, does Kelly risk turning off the far left with an answer like that? And really, does it matter? Is the far left even going to endorse one of these two?
Well, I think one of the candidates would like Lisa Calderon to support them. I mean, she certainly had a good showing in the general election. And the Democratic Socialist Group has shown they have the capability of turning out voters. But they have 3 candidates in the council races, and maybe that will spread them a little thin. But it is an interesting dynamic, and turning out your voters, as you mentioned just a moment ago, will be key. And so having that alignment will benefit one of the candidates in the race.
So if the Democratic Socialists are turning out their supporters, right? They're going to vote in the mayor's race, too, and pick between these two. And so, if she's going to say, look, I'm not afraid to use the veto pen here, I don't know how they're going to respond to that one.
I mean, I said in my column this week, Sean, that the Democratic Socialists are ascendant in Denver. I mean, they're going to have a bunch of they're ascendant in the state legislature and the Denver City Council. They're not going to sit back and just kind of watch the new mayor do whatever they want to. Now, Mike's much more conversant on the power of the mayor. The mayor really has a powerful position, much powerful than the City Council. But the fact is that whoever is mayor is going to have to confront these people, because they're not going to sit back. And I didn't appreciate until I watched the debate a second time the subtle difference between Brough and Johnston on this issue.
Right.
It was very marked.
And certainly we've talked about how there could be some intra-party battles.
Sure. Well, I mean, it may not be intra-party as much as it will be the mayor versus council.
Yeah.
And there on council, there's some uneasiness between the factions too, and that'll continue to be seen between the veterans who remain and those who are new.
You've pointed out City Council has had a Latina leadership team for the last 2 years, and depending on the outcome of the runoffs, Latinas could hold 7 of the 13 city council seats. So how do you see them shaping policy?
Well, I think it is pretty historic to see that. It could be a possibility. I do think in the past council, several of the Latina councilwomen have banded together on certain issues. They have a perspective that is very unique, needless to say. And so I would say this, that if they are in a majority, they may be focusing certainly on some things that the Latino community has been left out of or has not been considered for as much in the past.
Right. You could certainly see that, Dick, right?
Oh, yeah. And in fact, even though there would only be potentially four declared socialist Democrats, the fact is, I think some of the others who might get elected to the council aren't far from it. So that 7 could be a majority of essentially a Democratic Socialist majority.
Yeah, it will be interesting. Well, thanks for watching Left, Right, Center. We're off next week, but then it is full speed ahead to the June 6th runoff. I think I have a debate or a forum almost every week.
There you go.
Gosh, we're going to have a lot to talk about in the days ahead.